Hypnosis works, transforming the mind.
Hi there, I'm Hendrik Baird, a practicing non-medical hypnotherapist currently based in Pretoria, South Africa. I'm always curious to learn more about hypnosis, and so I thought, what better way to learn than to chat with other hypnotherapists to gain some insights into what they do and how they work. So join me as we explore the fascinating world of the mind and of hypnosis. And today I'm joined by Susan Kruger. Susan is actually close to the Kruger National Park, and if you're outside of South Africa, it's a fantastic place where you can see the most amazing wildlife, and all the tourists go there. So Susan, welcome this morning to this podcast episode.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, okay, let's start, and I always start with everybody here. Let's start at the very beginning, which is always a really good place to start. Tell me, how did you get into hypnosis and hypnotherapy?
This comes a long way. I actually saw a stage show when I was young. That was very interesting. So I started reading up. But living in a small town, there wasn't much to learn. So I made use of the little resources I had. And I started doing self-hypnosis and being diagnosed with social anxiety at a young age. That helped me very much to overcome that. I still suffer from it, but it is very more manageable now. But way back then, hypnosis had a very bad, connotation. So when I told my mom about me doing self-hypnosis, she freaked out. So I kept it to myself for a long time. So after school, I studied psychology. I went as far as doing my honors degree in psychology. And I decided, no, that is not really the way I wanted to go, because after seeing a psychologist myself and me not liking to talk about my problems much, I decided, no, if this is not going to work for me, it works for some people most of the time, but it's not for me. So I went in a way different direction. I started up to restaurants and I did quite good and I sold them. And thereafter I moved to KZN and I did some volunteer work at Jonah Vaughan Home for the mentally disabled, as well as Bobby Bear, Operation Bobby Bear. And I decided, well, why not take it a bit further? I know hypnosis worked for me when I was very young. So I started looking into that and I studied through SAI, South African Institute of Hypnotism. And I got certified only in 2017. And from there on, I haven't looked back, because it's just an amazing modality and I love it. I really do.
Tell me something. You say you studied psychology. Did you learn about hypnosis while studying for that?
Oh, yes. There's only a very, very small, they touch the subject about Freud doing hypnotherapy and also all that, but they don't really go into that.
Yeah, I find it so interesting because in South African law, only psychologists are legally allowed to practice hypnotherapy. And yet it seems that they don't study it at all, which is very weird.
No, you can't study it like overseas. I know in England you can do clinical hypnotherapy through universities, but in South Africa there isn't anything like that, what I know of.
So you studied through SAI, and then did you go into practice immediately, or did it take time for you to get to that point?
No, I didn't go immediately. I just did it on friends, family, and where I volunteered, but I never asked for money. Only recently I decided to take this up as a career, doing it full time.
You're in a very small town. Tell us a little bit about the attitudes people have there towards hypnosis. Is it conservative or not?
You get your conservative people, but it's interesting enough. You can't put them in a box, You can't say this person will be into hypnotherapy or not, because sometimes they will surprise you. I had a very old farmer came to see me, and it's not your typical, what you might think a typical hypnotherapist client, So it is changing, and people are more open to it. And I think in a small community, I think it's the novelty. It's interesting. They want to experience it themselves. So sometimes it works to my advantage.
I was actually thinking about that the other day because, I was in Cape Town for a while and there are literally scores of hypnotherapists around behind every mountain. There is somebody doing hypnotherapy. Well, if you look at the Find a Hypnotist website and you click on the Northwest province, there's like 2 people.
Yeah.
In Free State, there's nobody. So it might be that you probably have a little bit of an advantage over some of us in the big cities where, I think we are overrepresented, where you are the only one in the area. And do you only practice in that town or do you also work in areas around it?
I do go to other towns around me because there's still people that want to see one-on-one. They are not willing to drive that far. So I go to Zanin, and that is more manageable for people, say, from Polokwane or Port Elizabeth or somewhere like that. Not that far as Palabora itself, because Palabora is way out of, it is at the edge of South Africa almost. People are more tempted to go to Zanin and see me there.
Would you go to somebody's house and do it at their residence, or do you have an office or a place where you work at when you go to another town?
I used to have an office at the doctor's consultation room, but COVID-19, and that changed a bit because people don't want to go to a consultation room because it's more dangerous. So I have a little office out of town on a farm. The people come and see me there.
Oh, okay.
So I never go to a person's home.
Oh, okay. So do you also then do online hypnosis? Most of the hypnotherapists I've been speaking to have been saying, they've just moved on to Zoom and it works as well as it does in person.
Yeah, I do online consultation as well. I find it much easier, and the cost, saving money in traveling and stuff like that. So it might be, for most people, it is easier to online session. Get the odd person that wants to do it one-on-one.
So talk to me about the kind of issues that people come to see you for and how your processes work, what sort of techniques you use, how many sessions you would spend with a person, that sort of thing.
I'm more a resource strategist. I like getting people in a better state, taking them out of the stressful state. Sometimes just if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So just taking them out of that stressed situation, the state of mind, might give them more insight and more insight into solutions. So I tend to see people 3 times. I find most people only need 3 sessions. The first one is just introduction to hypnosis and telling them what it's all about, what to expect, and erasing fears, because there are still people that are not informed about hypnosis. They think that, the hypnotherapist will take control of them and fix them. But as you know, hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and it's the therapist's job to just guide the client to get to that resource to change. So this session is quite light and informative and just erasing the fears and misconceptions about hypnotherapy. And I also take them into hypnosis on the first session, but it's only to not working really on a specific problem. The next session will be going more deeper, and depending on the problem, I either do parts therapy or I do resource state again. And if it's still necessary, we can, on the third session, we do analytical hypnotherapy, which takes a person back to the initial sensitizing event, and we work from that. So mostly it is a 3-tiered session.
It sounds to me like you're very much following the kind of guidance we were given at SCI as to how to approach, working with somebody in this way.
It's a tried and tested method, so I know it works, so I do not want to deviate from that too much. At this stage, it's more stress related, people losing their jobs and, the stress with this virus and being in lockdown for such a long time. It's mostly about stress. At this stage, it's the biggest thing I see people about. I used to do a bit of smoking cessation, but that dried up, as you might know. And also, I like to help children with the stress of exams and the common day-to-day things that they go through.
One of my pet peeves is that we don't teach children enough skills at school, especially when it comes to helping themselves through self-hypnosis. And it's interesting that you worked with kids around that. Tell me, what is it like to work with children? What ages do you work with? And is it easy or difficult? How do you find it?
I usually work with high school and university students, and I find it easier to work with them because they are more open. They don't question my methods too much, and they tend to follow instructions. So it's quite easy to work with a younger person.
And then you were telling me about you working with an old farmer. How does that compare with somebody who has some set ideas?
After I told him about, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis and I'm not going to take control and all that usual stuff, it was quite easy to take him into a deep trance and to see him relaxing. It was not what I expected, but it did have a wonderful outcome. So if they are willing to follow the instructions, everything is possible.
Now, you obviously work in Afrikaans. Is that your home language?
Yes, I do struggle a bit with the English language, but most of my clients are Afrikaans-speaking.
So interestingly, and I work a lot in Afrikaans as well, is that, when we got our training, it was mostly in English. And so some of the methods, you have to translate it for yourself. How do you find using the right words? I mean, in English, it's easy to go, relax and go deeper and deeper. In Afrikaans, it might be a little bit more challenging. How do you get around that?
In the beginning, I really struggled with this because it was so, I've practiced so much in English doing it. So what I did is I translated all the course material and I went through it again. And there are times that the semantics doesn't work quite as good in Afrikaans as it would have been in English. But, with practice, it gets easier. Really, I would love it if there could be a course in Afrikaans, that would change a lot.
Yeah, Arno does the courses, is Afrikaans, but he does the whole thing in English. And I'm always curious to see, to know how he would do his practice if you come to him in Afrikaans.
Yeah, I talked about this to Maury. She's the other hypnotherapist in Limpopo. It's only the two of us. And she said she translated everything also in the beginning. And she's been doing this for more than 15, 20 years, I think. So it comes naturally to her. So I really go to her when I have a big hurdle. I tend to ask her for some advice. That's the best thing, having a mentor to help you in the beginning, to help you through the stuff, having a soundboard to just help you see something differently. So if there's someone out there starting out, get yourself a willing mentor. That was the best thing for me, having someone to go to with questions.
It's quite a scary thing when you have somebody sitting there next to you and they trust you to help them to solve all these massive issues in their life. And you go like, I'm not quite sure how, but, we can try.
Yeah, never say try though. I remember as as part of my part of the training, you have to do case studies. With me being out of town, very far from people, and I didn't want to do it with someone I know because I have this anxiety. So I put it out there in the papers that I need someone to practice, that I'm a student and I need someone to practice. A librarian actually contacted me and she said she would like to do this. Now, at that stage, I had to go to a house. So that took me out of my comfort zone. And when I got there, she was a very stern-looking woman. So I already, two strikes against me. It's not my comfort zone. It's a stern, elderly woman. So I remembered thinking to myself, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? When I started out, I was so nervous. I stumbled over the words and everything. And she had this smile at one stage on her face when losing the numbers. And I was so unsure of myself, but I pushed through. And at the end, when I did the debriefing, I asked her, how did she find it? And she said that she actually, when it came to losing the numbers, she decided that she won't lose that numbers and she would keep on counting till she reached about 50. When she started smiling, it was around about 97 or something, and she couldn't remember the numbers. That was funny because she set out to prove me wrong, and she lost the numbers anyway. So that gave me an extra boost. If I could hypnotize someone like that, I can do it to anyone.
Do you get people who come out of the first session going, I don't think I was hypnotized?
In the beginning, before I give the pre-talk about what to expect and everyone finds it more different, I did get it, but I just explained to them, of course you had to hear me because how else would you implement the changes? You can hear everything being under hypnosis. You still hear everything. It's just in an altered state.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the business of hypnosis. How do you get clients?
Well, being in a small town is very easy. It's purely by word of mouth. I've never advertised everything anyway. I do have a listing on Science website, and some people do contact me through that. But otherwise, I do not advertise in any way.
Oh, well, that's very lucky, because I was speaking to another hypnotherapist who was saying that Google AdWords are stopping ads for hypnotherapists, and that was one of the big ways that we used to get clients. And so we have to obviously find other avenues to do that. Are you doing this full-time or are you doing this part-time?
Well, I used to do it before COVID. I used to do it part-time, but it's full-time now.
And you find you get enough clients to make a living out of it?
I'm lucky enough that my husband have a quite steady income, so it's sufficient enough, yeah. If it wasn't for him, I would have made a living from it, but it's sufficient enough to keep me going.
Maybe there was something interesting that happened. You were telling me about your first client and your case study, and maybe was there something unusual that you saw that surprised you perhaps?
Oh, yes. Another, also farmer, game farmer, a woman to be precise. You don't get many of them. She came to see me about at the second session. We did the parts therapy, and she's an Afrikaans-speaking farmer. And again, farmer. And she actually, when the two parts were communicating with each other, one was Afrikaans and the other one was English. And that I found it so fascinating because she's an Afrikaans-speaking person. So the two parts were way different, so far different that one was Afrikaans and the other one was English. I found that very interesting.
Now, if you had to motivate somebody why they had to use your services and hypnosis, what would you say to them?
Well, from personal experience, I have tried quite a lot of therapy. I went to psychotherapy, I did quantum energy coaching, I did faster EFT, and as well as trauma and release exercises, TRE. I'm actually a trained practitioner in TRE. I went through all of that. It worked for me to an extent. But hypnotherapy was the one that actually, I wouldn't say cure, but it helped me the most. So I would say, try it once. I know it will work for you because it will definitely work for me.
So you're talking from personal experience here that in fact hypnosis
Definitely.
does work. Your contact details, Susan, how can people get hold of you?
At the moment, you can reach me through email at susankreer@gmail.com or via cell phone. It's 082 447 3543.
Thank you very much, Susan, for chatting with me today.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was really nice talking to you.
Well, I found chatting to my hypnosis colleague very interesting and insightful, and I trust that you did too. Their contact details are in the podcast description, or you can get in touch with them through findahypnotist.co.za. If you want to find out more about me and what I do, please visit my website, hendrikbaird.com. Remember, I release new episodes every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe to my channel. Until we speak again, have a hypnotic day.
Hypnosis works, transforming the mind.